I wanted to do a quick video on moving holds. I want to try and keep it as real time as I possibly can. Hopefully going to give you some methods and I guess a little workflow on how to do moving holds and how to do them so they work nicely, but also in an efficient, fast way. So two types of moving hold. You have a moving hold where you're going from a pose to a pose. And then you have a moving hold where you're in a pose and so already in a pose and you're just keeping alive within that. So keep alive. What does that mean? Well, pose to pose is essentially going from, let's say you have a head over here, it's looking down there, and the head then turns and is looking over there, and in between you have some breakdowns and stuff. Now you might hold this pose for, I don't know, 10 frames, and then you might hold this pose where the character looks over here for, I don't know, 30 frames. And then in between is, you know, breakdowns, and you might spend 8 frames transitioning between these two. Going from this pose to this pose, we want to do that transition and then settle in. So that will be our moving hold. Now we can do that with just simply an ease, or we can do that with like kind of a bit of overshoot and settle. So there's a few ways you can tackle it. And then already in a pose animation is kind of what it says on the tin. I don't really need to do any drawings for that. You're in a pose and you kind of want to stay there and just keep alive. So let's have a look in Maya. Okay, so we have two poses, and I'm just going to take this pose and set this over here as well. So I'll quickly just do a breakdown in there. Just adjust that pose slightly. Didn't change it at all. I'm just kind of leading with the hips there, dragging the chest, dragging the head. All right, so we got a breakdown. We've got our final pose. I'm actually going to set this to stepped tangents. Just go into the graph editor and set those to stepped. So now we have a breakdown and our two poses, we can start already to think about moving holds. So if I want to do an ease out of this pose, I can just kind of think about just kind of leading with some body parts and dragging other body parts. I go fairly cartoony with this for demonstration purposes. So where we have an ease out into our breakdown, I can then kind of drag these keys and just can come in and add another ease. So I'm just using the poses I already have and then just going in and adding arcs. That manipulator a bit bigger to what I have. And I can continue dragging these poses out and adding breakdowns. I have a hotkey for adding breakdowns, by the way. Like I said, I'm trying to do this quick. I can just come in, you know, maybe add a little chest movement. Too much. Just blend back to my previous pose. I realize I'm not talking that much right now, but I'm just trying to get something that works. So I'm just kind of thinking about the way the motion is kind of flowing, and the way things kind of overlap and drag and lead and follow. And through just adding ease after ease after ease into that breakdown pose, you get something which kind of goes like that. So you have a bit of an ease, right? And you can, you know, drag these way out depending on how long you want your ease to be. Oops. And, you know, put the bit in the middle a bit closer together. And let me just take a look at the other side. I think it's much clearer on the other side. Sort of starting to want to lead with the shoulder here. And you'll notice as well that I'm going in and kind of changing breakdowns and doing all of this stuff while I'm making these poses, because it's not taking me a ton of time, not like tied to these poses. I think when you do that, things can just take forever and it becomes very painful to get any kind of work done. So I just kind of go in, put a pose in, and then you have at least something to start with. I want to continue to kind of drag that head. Maybe not as much. So at this point, you kind of have a decision to make whether you want your moving hold to be quite soft and kind of ease into that. So, you know, just for example, you could just hit a few eases, just adding eases in with Tweenmachine so that things just kind of ease in. Or you could have things kind of quite sharply get into place, in which case you would kind of do an overlap, because you're stopping quite quickly, which means the momentum of the rest of the body would need to have somewhere to go. I guess that's more of a discussion for weight, and I think it could be cool to do a video on weight. I've got a few ideas for that. But for now, let's take what we have and just work into it as if it was a shot, I guess. So let's do a bit of an overlap if we can on things. Maybe an overlap on the hips so they come up. We got kind of, but then we would have the chest still kind of dragging. And certainly the neck. You want to drag those shoulders as well so they kind of come up. And that one comes down. can focus more on the arms at a later stage. I don't typically make sure everything's perfect before moving it on. I do like to get things done in place quick so I can start playing with timing and start to kind of feel out the animation. So let's just, like I just did, add another ease. And that is kind of the basis of my moving hold process. So let's just add another little slight up. Just gonna push this arc a bit. Feels like maybe we're getting a bit stuck in the hips. And I think I want the hips to come through to their greatest point at this frame. So I just want to make sure that the arc is not overshooting that way. It's just overshooting in the translate Y, if that makes sense. So you can kind of see at this point, I don't actually have to do a lot with the chest. I'm pretty happy with how that's panning out. I'm just going to kind of ease more or less one way or the other. Whereas the neck, I still kind of want to be dragging a bit more. So I'm going to kind of push that. Maybe the head as well. And maybe we overshoot the head. Yeah, we can do that later. Let me just start to have it reach its final position in Y. Just going to add another ease, of course. And you can see things are kind of automatically starting to fall in place. I just need to go in and kind of add some mechanics on top of that and make sure things are kind of making sense so that we don't get any hard hits or anything. I'm happy to start kind of easing in the neck there. And then maybe the head just has a little bit more of an arc to it, just tiny. And then when we're here, kind of just hit and ease. And you know, you can go in, add more complexity to this. Think what might be nice is, you know, maybe end up dragging these arms a bit more. They end up like shooting out more. Have a bit of a hold that way. And a hold is just a spacing thing, right? So if we go back to this, what you're essentially doing is you're having a pose, and you have a breakdown in the middle. And then out of that pose, you just have ease ins and ease outs, right? So this section here, where we're basically finished with our movement, we're just resolving that motion, we're doing a settle. And this part here, that could be the end of the previous movement or the end of the movement that's just happened or the start of another movement that is about to happen. So it's not like one separate thing that you have in your scene. It's kind of built into other things around it. But the crux of it is just spacing, right? So that's all we're trying to control here. You can see here, if I just let this interpolate, that arm would then kind of quite linearly, it has a lot of spacing to do. So in that case, I would add another breakdown just to make sure that that arm is kind of settling in a way that I'm happy with. And you can really just, depending on how long you want your moment to be, just keep coming in, keep adding eases, and just keep breaking things down, keep adding more settles. You know, you can add more overshoots. Say he came in a really cartoony way and we really pushed this arc and then came in kind of like with a big up and then wanted to settle down. We would then need to continue adding more and more overlap. So I'll add another ease there on the hips. And that would then affect, you know, the rest of it, where maybe this chest doesn't come up as much. And then we have more overlap. Then we add more breakdowns, and we can just continue this endlessly until we're finally happy with, you know, the amount that we're adding into that. I'll just finish it because I'm kind of having fun now. You know, it's this whole decision-making process is kind of whether you want things to kind of come in and stop. You know, that certainly helps with clarity, or you want things to come in for another reason, like you want to sell some weight, like something is really heavy and it's like taking a lot to kind of slow down and just continually kind of settles. So you can see how we've really kind of milked that settle. And we can continue to milk it. And, you know, then play with timing and... And right there you have from 1 frame to 69, conveniently. Which is almost, you know, 2.5, 3 seconds of animation. So it's just kind of done quite quickly, pose to pose. I mean, we want to go in here and we want to, you know, play with the timing on the arms and, you know, have them be reacting in a nice way and overshooting. And let's just do that for the other arm. This is quite often what I will do when I'm building these breakdowns. Just come in and kind of do an arm pass, just focusing on the spacing of the arm and what that's doing. So quite quickly you have a nice kind of settly animation, but definitely overdone, a bit too pushed. But we have our moving hold. So let's have a quick look, if we just take that pose, about what we do when we're in this pose, essentially. So it's as if none of this animation existed. You can just delete that, but I'm gonna leave it there for now. So say we're in this pose and we just want to hold in there, and, you know, maybe has, I don't know, he's thinking, well, he's just alive, right? So what does it mean to do a keep alive? Well, I'm just going to take the pose that we have and just tweak it ever so slightly. Just kind of touch all of these main controls and just go somewhere else with it. If you look at reference of yourself doing this sort of thing, it's so difficult to stay in exactly the same position. You will kind of naturally be doing moving holds just like this. Especially if you look over the course of, what's this, 50 frames? Okay, so we're kind of going somewhere different, and the process of going from this pose to another pose and doing a moving hold in between, you might think, you know, you come in and hit this, hit auto, and then, you know, hey, I've got a moving hold. And you know what? It kind of works a little bit. You might get away with it if you're doing something where you could get away with something like that. But I'm going to show you that you don't have to just be that lazy. You can still be lazy, that's fine. But we can come in, and I think I just zoomed out a bit there. Just adjust that camera. All I'm going to do is literally the process I've just done, and just add a little bit of compression and just essentially a breakdown for between my two poses, which are the same. A little bit of an arc. I drop the hips a little just so we have arcs. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in, I'm going to create an ease. That's just 66% of this pose. Anything that needs to be put in arc, to be honest, at this point, it's kind of just automatically doing it. We could, you know, polish it up when we spline it and do the same on the other side. We're going to have some things overlapping, so let's just grab the chest. I favored things to this side, so let's grab all the chest controls and favor them to this side, just so we create a little more overlap in there. I'm not going to do something too cartoony. And then I'm just going to overlap that head slightly, just to kind of add a little bit of weight to that shift. And then we can kind of come in, finish off our eases. I'm not going to quite get that to its final position so quickly. And we just tone down the chest a little. And just come in, do the same thing. Little tweaks here and there where you want to add arcs. And we come in, add some eases. And then what we have is something which just has a little bit more naturalism. It has arcs, it has believability. And how long did that take? Maybe a minute or two. And it's super easy to add in. You just come in and adjust the timing in between. So essentially your spacing is done with the timing here. You can see how things get closer together in the middle. And when we play it through, we have quite a nice, believable moving hold. So let's just play the two types of moving hold together. We have a moving hold to start, a breakdown, going into essentially a moving hold where we've done a big settle, and then a moving hold where we just slightly change the pose. So it's not the best. It's definitely a bit too pushed in places, but hopefully you can see just how quickly it can be, how quick it can be to come in and add some life to poses which are just there. And we don't have to just come in, hit spline between two poses and let Maya interpolate, 50 frames of animation. It's very easy to come in and use Tweenmachine. I've got the Tween hotkeys on hotkeys using AnimBot. Don't have to use AnimBot, you can use Tweenmachine. This stuff is very easily transferred to any animation software whatsoever. And I think we can actually keep this video under 30 minutes, pretty much real time. If that was helpful to you guys, like the video, give me a subscribe, share it around, and let me know anything you want to see in future videos in the comments below. Thanks a lot for watching. See ya.